Welcome to the Neighborhood Church Revive podcast. We are so glad that you're joining us today as we unpack big ideas about God's Word together. My name is Sean Thomas. I'm the worship pastor here at Neighborhood Church, and we believe that God's Word is relevant and helpful even for today, which is why we take time to meet here during the week and just talk about what we talked about Sunday, the sermon series that we're in, and just big stuff that's going on in life. We have a special show. We have the Mike and Mike show, which is cool. I'll let Mike introduce himself first.
Yeah, I'm Mike McKay.
Yes.
And glad to be here.
Mike Wilson, glad to be here again.
Yeah. We were talking about Mike Wilson's been here for the last couple months, super consistently. Mike McKay, you've been gallivanting around the world. It seems like it's
Not really, just having a lot to do.
Just in Cypress, I guess, gallivanting. Yeah. But just a lot of projects, especially with the holidays. Halloween is past. We're getting towards Thanksgiving. Christmas is coming up, and we were talking before we started recording the podcast. We're on the tail end of our Revere series, which is very powerful. It's been just great Sundays from the messages that have been going on. The worship has been wonderful. The podcast too, I feel like, have been really encouraging, and I hope for those of you listening and who follow along with us, I really hope that you guys have been blessed. And it's really cool that we're going from just more Old Testament, the holiness of God, into now Christmas time and kind of the light. And I was talking with Lorena. We're working on a little preview for everybody listening, a little kids skit, and we were trying to decide how are we going to link what the kids are doing in their Sunday school classes to Christmas time. Well, their memory verse is Hebrews 1:1-4, and it talks about, in the old times, God spoke through the prophets, but now in these last days, He spoke through His Son. God Himself came, Jesus, who is the radiance of God's glory here on earth, is now interacting with us and is taken care of the sin problem, basically. And so it's really encouraging and cool to consider the Christmas story and just how fun and warm and fuzzy that is, but how profound and there's a sense of reverence and awe of God's sovereignty, which is what we talked about this past week, and just kind of God's plans that He has for all of mankind, all of humankind, and how He unpacks that throughout history. And Mike Wilson, we were talking about some fun, again, before we started recording, we were talking about food, which is a topic that I know is near and dear to many people's hearts. But you were talking about, your experience in the military and just kind of like you had these C rations, I guess are called, which I'm sure our military folks listening.
From World War II. And I was in Vietnam.
Hopefully they hadn't lasted that long.
Yeah, they were unopened for 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
We did.
But just how, but how God sustains us, and when we try and experiment in different food and like, oof, this is maybe kind of out of the ordinary. But yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. We were in the book of Esther and just really enjoyed just kind of hearing the message. Mike, you spoke at Cypress. Mike McKay, then Mike Wilson was at Los Al, and just kind of launch boarding off of that and just seeing how God works in history, even when you don't necessarily see Him. I think one of the cool things, Mike McKay, that you pulled out is that His name is not in the book of Esther at all.
His name is not listed in the book. It's only books of the Bible that doesn't name the name of God.
Yeah,
in some way. But it's speaking of reverence, and that is, reverence is part of our human experience. We revere. That's turning your heart, the center of your being, to be in awe of. Yeah. And we reverence all kinds of things. Sometimes it's a amazing athlete that does a amazing catch or amazing play, and we revere them, or making an amazing play with business or things like that. We revere, and reverence is important to us because actually Jesus mentioned that reverence or what we treasure affects our heart, and that's the center of our being. Yeah. And so reverence, choosing to be in having a reverent respect of things, shape us, or a person shapes us. In Proverbs 9:10, it says that a reverent respect of God actually brings on wisdom. So it shapes us that we are wiser when we revere God.
Yeah.
In Ecclesiastes 12:13, which is written by Solomon, says that the deep purposes of life are found in the fear of the Lord, in reverencing God. And Proverbs 14:27 says that being in awe of God is literally a fountain of life. That when we place God in that highest place of awe in our life and revere Him, life just seems to fall into place, and we're better for it.
Yeah.
So in this whole series, we've been looking at different areas to revere God in.
Yeah.
And looking at Isaiah and then the big showdown with Elijah and the prophets of Baal, and
the fire from heaven.
and then now revering God's power.
Yeah.
And you can imagine that whole scene there where fire comes down from heaven
Yeah.
and everybody's woo.
Yeah.
And it said everybody bow down and worship God. They bowed down and showed reverence to God because. But also God, we can revere God for His sovereignty. That's His overarching authority, meaning His authority means He's all-powerful, all-knowing, personally present everywhere at once, and there's no other authority that can thwart His plan. So God's going to do that. And when we come to faith in Him, we come directly under His plan.
Yeah.
And He's got good plans for us. Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare. That's the Hebrew word shalom.
Shalom.
Which just means it's like a deeper welfare, a satisfaction.
Inner being.
Yes. Yeah. And it's that sense of connection and purpose and rightness is all found in that word shalom, and not for difficult things, to give us a hope in the future. And that's Jeremiah 29:11. But Jesus also put it this way in John 10:10, that He said, I come that you might have life and have it abundantly. Before that, He said, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's what the enemy does. And so when we choose to kind of go not follow God's will and way, we're subject to that thief's, we're actually revering self or revering not God, which is not right. And so we're kind of subject to the out there. But under God's sovereign rule is this incredible reality.
One year I was up at Hume Lake. It's kind of interesting. And, they'll have a music and then a preacher and a music and then a preacher. Third preacher got up and said, quoted, all those that came before me are thieves and liars.
Let's hope not, right?
Yeah, he was just having fun with us.
Right. But God has got great plans for us. In Romans 8:28, and we know that for those who love God, in other words, who are revering God, it says all things work together for good. Now that's not means it's going to be pleasant and easy. It's God's good and God's purposes, which tend to be the best for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't always feel good, but it's the best for us. And He says, for those who are called according to His purpose, those who are putting themselves under God's sovereign plan.
Yeah.
So the Bible book of Esther, is how I'm getting to that.
Yeah. I like this.
Is all about what seems to be random set of circumstances that fall into place exactly for God's plan. And God's sovereignty, though His name's not mentioned, His sovereign hand is at work all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's really incredible. It's an incredible book.
Yeah. I got on the one section there in verse 14 of Esther, said, yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this.
Right. Yeah, that Esther got raised to be the queen through a crazy set of circumstances. Not even good ones.
Not good ones.
Yeah, and not even really right ones. And somebody said on Sunday, it was kind of like Esther was trafficked.
Yeah.
Or put into a almost like a slavery.
Yeah.
But made queen. So she had a lot of power. But she was put in the king's harem, and then he liked her best, so I'll just make her queen. Just
even in the darkest of circumstances.
Got rid of Vashti.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, I mean, it's interesting. As you guys were talking, you think about it's this paradox. You see, it's very New Testament. I am a slave to Christ, but in that I am free.
Yes.
And there's this kind of paradox. And I hear oftentimes, people who don't believe in God or who maybe espouse more of an atheistic worldview, there's almost this idea that they don't like the thought of being subject or under the authority of something. Like that's part of their angst against the idea of God. And I get that and I understand that, especially like Westerners, we have a culture of freedom and fighting oppression, and things like that.
But deep down inside.
Yeah, and that's my...
We long for it.
We long for purpose, for meaning, for this sense of shalom, peace and calm and sense of direction, and a sense of significance.
Yeah.
And the problem with humanity is our own sinful suit that we live in, that's bent towards that sense that we can be our own
God.
Sovereignty, our own God. And so we fight that a lot, even though it's best for us. Yeah. A kid will fight to eat just candy all the time and dessert all the time.
Yeah.
Because they think it's what's best for them. But we know as parents and grandparents that really a good balanced diet is better for them. And we're eating far too many sweets. So we need to really kind of, every now and then it's okay, a little thing here and there.
Yeah.
And but it's to be healthy. And so, and God knows that about us. Left alone, we make a mess of everything.
Yeah. Boy, don't we?
And we think that we got it all wired up. I just heard a story about a person who just doesn't want to be under their parents' authority, anybody's authority. They want to do what they want and live the way they want and all that kind of stuff. And it's just their life is a complete mess.
Yeah.
They want everything the way they want it, but even with that, it's not the best.
And I think deep inside of us, I think we all really know there is a God, and He is best for us.
Yeah.
He always has our best interest at heart.
Yeah. And He does. And the Bible gives that story time and time and time again.
Again and again.
And again, we mess it up because we think we have all the answers, that my way is right. And, how's that working for you? Honestly, I mean.
What it makes me think of this coming week, we're looking at Jonah, I believe, and it's, I know we're kind of looking more, I think, at God's mercy, I think it is, or something rather than sovereignty. But I feel like there's still an application to sovereignty, as Jonah, was still believed in God, I would say, but was running away, and in God's sovereignty, there was a storm, even as Jonah was going in the opposite direction to where he was called, he goes into the ocean,
He tells them he's the problem.
Yeah. Because
he knows he is.
Because he knows he is.
He knows the power of God.
Yep.
He knows the sovereignty of God, and he knows that the will of God. Because Jonah, the reason why he's running is because he doesn't. God says, "I'm going to save the Ninevites."
Yeah.
Ninevites were not nice people.
Yeah.
No, he hated
down bad people.
Yeah.
And Jonah's going, "You're going to save them?"
Yeah.
What? And just incensed with that because he didn't capture the love of God.
Yeah.
And so he runs. And so God's storm comes up and he says to this thing, "I'm the cause of the problem."
Yeah.
When it's
throw me overboard.
I like where it says they cast lots and it fell on Jonah.
Yeah, again.
Yeah, not only does Jonah say, no, it's me. They're like, wait, let's use our own superstitious, and this even affirms it, right?
Then they throw him overboard. Then they pray, "Lord, don't hold us blood
Well,
against
because the
us."
sea just immediately calms.
Yeah.
That's got to be weird.
Yep.
And then the whole thing about the fish coming and swallowing him, and he's letting the fish for 3 days and spits up.
But it makes me think
fish vomit on the side of the
I think Mike, you and I were talking about, I think a while back, Moby Dick. I think, was it you? It might have been John, but I think you were talking about it and how Captain Ahab, and it's, obviously a fictional story, but his own obsession, his own irresponsibility, that drove him to his demise and the people around him, and kind of going back to that thought of, the modern atheist movement, so shakes their fists against, something that they say doesn't exist, but almost their response is something that does exist, right?
It doesn't
if you're so
exist,
angry,
why you're fighting it.
Yeah, why is there such angst and animosity. But there's been an amazing, we've seen, and it happens throughout history, but it seems, in kind of these modern times in the last 20 years, there are some people who were staunch atheists or at least agnostics who are now coming to a theistic, believing in God at least, if not becoming Christians, and it's just amazing seeing these people in a Jonah type of a sense, or going back to Esther, kind of realizing, well, things are aligning that I just can't explain other than. And I don't want to say I give up because that sounds defeatist, but it's almost like a leap of faith. I give up, right? Like I'm trying
because it does come down to a faith.
Yeah,
and that's what we have. We have a faith that God is the sovereign creator, Lord of all. Therefore, if he is that high, supreme designer, creator, God, then of course I would be subject to his will and rule, his reign. And that's where we shake the fist. I don't want anybody in charge of me. I'm my own self. And we get all upset about that. But even when I've talked to atheists, and I'm not an arguer.
Yeah.
I'm just, let's have a conversation. I love conversation. So, and they say, well, I don't get this. I don't get this. I don't see how this can happen. It doesn't seem scientifically probable. I said, well, I know there's some, because it does take a step of faith.
Yeah.
And I said, even let's just start with creation.
Yeah.
Where does this something that evolved into primordially slime that came into being, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It came from the Big Bang. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Because you can't all of a sudden just have something.
Yeah.
So where did that come from? And I've heard this right from the mouth of an atheist. And because I said, that takes faith too. And they go, you're right, it does take faith.
It takes more faith.
And what he said is that, I just want to put more faith in science than this mystical God out there. And I said, well, I've placed my faith in the reality of what the Bible teaches about God and about who he is and all that has to do with him, which has to do with Christ coming as we celebrate Christmas and his salvation of our sin. And all of the different elements of life came from, found in God's word. I choose to have faith and believe. And that belief for me has lined everything up. And I have found true peace. And so then I would say the atheist, does that give you true peace? Well, it settles my soul. But I said, but you don't sound very at peace.
Yeah.
And and I said, investigate, and at least investigate God.
Yeah.
Look into what that is. It will take at some point a choice of faith, and it's not. You can't explain everything.
Yeah.
Oh no.
But it takes. I'm choosing this faith works for me, and it just seems probable. And unfortunately, I've seen enough miracles where I go, I can't explain them. So there must be a divine intervention in there.
Has to be.
Yeah.
I was used the expression of just look at your watch.
Yeah.
You could take all the pieces of that watch and put them in a can and shake it for as long as you want, and it will not become a watch again.
Yeah.
How many shakes of that it's not going to assemble?
Even with millions and millions of years, the probability of that.
Yeah, billions of years.
Yeah, and the probability of us, we're the only beings that have the thoughts that we do.
Yeah.
And other mammals and animals, whatever, don't have the thoughts.
They don't have this. They don't have the historical context.
Yes.
At all.
Yeah. And aardvark isn't thinking about 2,000 years of aardvarkianism.
The best dog in this world doesn't know what day it is.
Yeah.
And
it's a day to eat and to have fun.
I was doing a memorial service over in San Bernardino years ago, and one of the little girls said, "Oh, look there's a black and white cat." And I said, "Yeah, and he doesn't even know he's black and white."
Yeah.
It's so funny. It must be Charles Schultz, the creator of the Peanuts, Snoopy. Must be his birthday or something on social media. Like it's coming up all these Snoopy Charles Schultz memes and everything. And there's this dog, I guess, who's been bred to look like Snoopy. It was this, it wasn't AI. I thought, was this AI? But it's a dog that was specifically bred to have black ears, furry, kind of puffy. And it was funny because they were having the dog pose next to pictures of Snoopy, and it dawned on me that dog has no idea that it looks like Snoopy or what a Snoopy is, or that it looks, it's the dog is, I'm sitting here with my owner, and isn't that kind of like us and God, like he's working and doing these sovereign things in the background. And I don't know about you guys, you're much wiser than me, but I'm kind of happy-go-lucky, I'm like, look at this, And I'm curious for you guys, and Mike Wilson, I'll start with you. How do you feel like you've seen God's sovereignty in your life? I mean, I love how we've described it, so far in these past like 10, 20 minutes of like, it's for us as we studied, as we've learned and have had conversations, it seems most likely that there's a sovereign God in control of everything, and also likely that he wants a relationship with us, as we see in Christmas, right? And as we're getting towards that season.
I'll tell you what happened to me. I knew when they asked me to be the youth leader of the youth group, and we had an adult couple that were over us, but I knew then that God was calling me. I didn't know into what, but I did. I knew that. And then when I went forward in my father-in-law's church and said, I believe the Lord's calling me into ministry, and my father-in-law pointed out to me in the days that followed, said, you got to go to school. And so I hadn't thought of that. But I did. And the first night there, I knew I needed to take a speech class.
Yeah.
So I took Speech 101, and the teacher of that class also was the head of the speech team. And he said, I think you ought to be on the speech team. And I said, what? And I said, so I joined. And that year, I won the national speech tournament.
Oh, wow.
And the only reason I could do that is I had almost total recall.
Mm-hmm.
I could read a big article out of U.S. News and that. But the day I spoke on the Salt Talks, and there was a big article in the paper that morning, and I just almost quoted verbatim in the speech.
So you see kind of like God's sovereignty and natural gifts, like giftings that you had.
When I won that, I knew. It wasn't me that won it. It was the Lord. It was the Lord. He gave us.
I think that there's so many things. I love stories, and I started the Sunday sermon about stories of mistakes that turned into something amazing. The Post-it note was a mistake.
Yeah.
Inventing the glue, the Slinky was a mistake. And my favorite is the chocolate chip cookie was not supposed to be. It was just a mistake.
The best mistake ever.
Chocolate powders, she put in chocolate, broken up chips of semi-sweet chocolate, and they didn't melt like she wanted them to. But and I don't know how true all those stories are. I do know that there's the Post-it no one's verifiable, but maybe the Slinky too. But I feel what I love about God's sovereignty is that we think we're messing it up. And sometimes it's easy to get, you made a mistake, whether it was a relationship or you did something wrong or you did something stupid, and you broke the law or did something or hurt somebody by accident. Or something by purpose even, and you feel like I'm done. I'm not saying, but the good thing about God and how I see His sovereignty work is that He takes the mistakes of life and He flips them around and uses them for His glory. Now we'll still face some of the human ramifications of that. You do drugs and mess up your brain. You're going to probably carry that all the way through your life on earth. It's one of those things. But God will still redeem that. Maybe use your testimony. Maybe use something of yourself. Or, relationally, you have a good relationship, all of a sudden it broke up, or your family's broken up, or divided, or whatever, or divorced, whatever, or you made a mistake, had an affair. All those kind of things. Those scars are deep, and you'll feel them when you move. But God can even take that
and use it,
and somehow turn it in for your glory when you present to Him. To me, that's His sovereignty working. He you're trying to put together the free will of man and the sovereignty of God is a little bit that
Yeah.
it makes your mind go.
That's a puzzle.
Little bit. But the
That's-
truth is, even with our mistakes, and not that we should go around making mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, don't do that.
Yeah.
Because, yes, God, it covers all sin
Yeah.
and stuff like that, but there's still human ramifications of that.
Yeah,
You light
yeah.
your face on fire, you're going to have scars.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, he is capable of doing miraculous things, and sometimes he does take away an issue. But but how God sovereignly uses those, for years. I struggle with a learning disability, dyslexia,
Yeah.
and called stupid. I have a hard time reading out loud.
Yeah.
I've gotten better, but
Yeah,
but I and I was they didn't know what to do with me because I
Yeah.
didn't process the way normal kids process.
Yeah.
And so, but all of a sudden these days now, dyslexics are saying, "This is how great dyslexia is." And I just even watched a little YouTube thing on that, and they said how wonderful and amazing and incredible dyslexic are because they can do this, that, and the next thing. And and I can see some of those positive things, and they just say, it's a real blessing. And I'm kind of going, I don't
see it that way.
Yeah.
I don't think so. If someone sits there and hands me, here, Mike, would you read these Bible verses out loud for us?
Gosh.
Fear
Yeah.
rips my soul
Yeah.
because though I can read, I'm fairly intelligent. I've got a doctorate degree.
Yeah.
When I read it out loud, all the words go, they
kinda
jump all
jumble,
around,
yeah,
and I have a hard time, or I'll replace words with words that just kind of pop into my head.
Oh, yeah.
And it comes across weird, and I'm super embarrassed about that. But God has used that
Yeah.
not only to keep me humble, but also that there are some unique realities of this disability that I see the world differently.
Yeah.
And I process things differently, and it helps me, and it helps other people because I can see things and lead and do that, conceptualize and do it very fast.
Yeah.
Which frustrates some people because they
Yeah.
I'm not there.
Where are we going? Yeah.
But so God's sovereignty is taking the mistakes and mess ups of life and disabilities and
Uses
hardships.
good things out of them.
yes, and makes amazing things out of them that are in line with His plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have mixed dominance.
Yeah,
What is that?
I have dominance on some things on the right side and other things on the left side of
Yeah.
the brain. Slight dyslexic
yeah.
sometimes. I remember the first time someone said, dyslexics worship dog. I said,
Yeah, whatever.
I don't think so.
Well, that's so cool that we always hear about in our weakness, God's strength, is made apparent, and it's perfected in our weakness. That it seems like only God, only a supreme being, could work those disadvantages to glorifying Him more or helping others around us, like making those puzzle pieces that feel jagged to make something even more beautiful. We were talking about McKay and we have weekly meetings, a number of meetings during the week, and we were talking about a Japanese art practice. The name is escaping me, but we'll link it to the show notes because it's quite famous. But it's the process of broken vessels or pots are reformed and refashioned with gold.
Yeah.
And the artistry is not necessarily in the vases themselves, which are beautiful, but the artistry is in the gold's splintering cracks that are apparent because of this artistic form of refashioning,
I saw
reforming.
something like that on one of the deals on PBS.
Yeah.
Antiques Roadshow. They showed.
Oh, yeah.
They showed one.
Yeah.
Kintsugi.
Yeah.
Kitsugi, and we'll
Kintsugi. Kintsugi.
Yeah. They had a gal that brought this deal that was put back together like that. Just unbelievable.
And God's sovereignty is such. So that's why it's to be in awe of how God, because I look in the mirror, how God can take a messed up kid like me, and with all my issues, all my struggles, some because I chose to do them. I chose to not go God's way, and God even takes that and turns it into something amazing. And man, if I could do it over, I would I would not do those things. Living with the scars and the memories and the issues of those is a lot. But I'm just so thankful for and a sovereign God and you mix in His love with that, His chesed, which is His loyal love, His loyal, always flowing, never stopping, unconditional love, and it makes for a beautiful life. Why wouldn't you want to follow Him?
So how would you guys encourage maybe some of our listeners who feel like they're in the midst of it? Maybe it's something they just can never find traction, whether it's in work or life or purpose or family struggles. And they might say, how can God use this, the muckiness that I feel like I'm in, either at this moment or for a lifetime? How might you encourage them?
I like what Charles Stanley said one time. He said, whatever you're going through, he said, you'll go through it until it accomplishes what God wants to accomplish, and then it'll go away.
Right. And I would just say, give God a try.
Yeah.
It's going to be a release. You have to let go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you have to trust in Him, because really to come under God's sovereignty requires a trust,
surrender,
a faith, and a surrender. Right, Mike?
Yeah.
And that's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. He'll work it out.
Yep.
And it's trust in the Lord and have faith in God, and that's what and no one can make you have faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's something that you own and you only can choose.
And you got to work it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
With
Him. And so, even for the believer, we need to keep growing in faith.
Yeah.
I like the way of the story when Elijah went to the lady. Mm-hmm. She had enough grain to make.
Yeah. Widow Zarephath.
For her son and die.
Yeah.
She made it for the prophet.
Yeah.
And enough for her son. And the next morning, the same thing all over again. I got enough for my son and me to die.
Yeah.
And I think that thing went on for like 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it never changed. The faith was always required, the same.
Yeah. And so it does take that faith to trust in God. And I know it's scary. Mm-hmm. I get it. It's scary to really, because you're not in control.
Yeah, that's tough.
And that's where I think Mike said about surrender and submission. It's a surrendering to His leadership and lordship of our life. And when we do that, life aligns. Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God, which is surrendered to the King, capital K, Jesus, of our life, and His righteousness, His way of life, and all the things of life will fall into place. All the things of life will align. Everything will be added into you. Yep. And the context really explains that verse. Is the disciples were all freaked out about how they're going to make it in life. And here they had been with Jesus, seeing all His miracles and all that kind of stuff, and they're like, how are we going to survive? He said, just keep having faith in Jesus as King. That means He's leader and Lord of life. So,
I like where it says, not a sparrow doesn't even fall to the ground that He does not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Mike and Mike. What a great conversation. I'm going to wrap up our time with a Bible verse that popped into my head last week, and I didn't read it, but it popped in again, and I'll read it. Just a little context. It's 2 Corinthians 12, 8 through 10, and Paul's talking about something that he's struggled with, and on the podcast we've talked about a lot in the past that we don't know exactly what that might be, but it's something that Paul has an issue with. And Paul says, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me. But He said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, Paul says, I will boast all the more gladly of my weakness, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then, I am content with weakness, insults, hardships, persecution, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining our podcast today. And thank you, listeners, the ones who are listening here. It's always good to have you guys along with us. Like I mentioned earlier, this past week, Mike McKay spoke at the Cypress campus. Mike Wilson spoke at the Los Alamitos campus. You can go on YouTube and search Neighborhood Church of Cypress or Neighborhood Church of Los Alamitos to see their respective sermons. And I definitely encourage you to do that. Also, to finish up this series for next week and getting ready for Christmas, which is great. The Bible verses, the resources, the people's names, and the things that we quoted today, we're going to write it down and put it on our website, neighborhoodchurch.com/revive, so you can hear this podcast and get links to those resources. But also, you can just go to our homepage for this current week and find those things as well at neighborhoodchurch.com. We also love hearing from you guys. If you want to email us with any questions or comments, you can send an email to connect@neighborhoodchurch.com. That's CONNECT@neighborhoodchurch.com. Until next time, we pray that God will revive your soul.